The warm sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the beach as I stood with my stepson Ryan. The waves lapped gently at the shore and families dotted the sands. Enjoying the last stretch of the day. Ryan had always been quiet, reserved, and I thought this little outing would be a good way to bond with him. After all, I had only been married to his father, Daniel, for 6 months. In building a relationship with Ryan was crucial to me. Ryan was 20, a young man teetering on the brink of adulthood, with a strong jawline and piercing green eyes that often betrayed his emotions, even when he tried to hide them. He'd agreed to this beach outing reluctantly, his headphones hanging around his neck like a shield against the world. But as the minutes ticked by, I noticed his body relaxing, his guard coming down, you know. This place reminds me of when I was a kid, I said, trying to start a conversation. I used to come here with my parents. We'd build the biggest sandcastles and stay until the stars came out. Ryan nodded but didn't reply. His gaze was fixed on the horizon, the setting sun reflected in his eyes. For a moment, I thought he wasn't listening. But then he said, "I haven't been to the beach since my mom passed away." The weight of his words hit me. Ryan rarely talked about his mother, and Danielle had told me to tread carefully around the subject. I hesitated, unsure if I should say something, but the vulnerability in his voice encouraged me to speak. "I'm sorry," I said softly. "She must have been an amazing woman." Ryan turned to me, his expression unreadable. She loved the ocean. She'd always say the waves reminded her of life. Always moving, never stopping. I smiled, touched by the sentiment. "That's beautiful. She must have been a poet at heart." Ryan's lips corked into a faint smile, and for the first time I felt like I connected with him. We walked along the shore in silence for a while, the sound of the waves filling the gaps in our conversation. As the sky deepened into shades of orange and pink, Ryan suddenly stopped. "Maggie," he said, using my first name instead of calling me stepmom, as he usually did. "Can I ask you something?" I turned to him, curious. Of course. He hesitated, his hands buried deep in his pockets. "Why did you marry my dad?" The question caught me off guard. "I love him," I replied honestly. "He's kind, strong, and he makes me feel safe." "Why do you ask?" Ryan's eyes searched mine, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. "No reason," he said, his voice quieter now. "I just wanted to know." We continued walking, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Ryan's question. Something unspoken lingered in the air between us, an invisible thread pulling us closer together. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with stars, Ryan suddenly stopped again. "Maggie," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "I need to tell you something." I turned to him, my heart pounding. "What is it?" He took a deep breath, his eyes locked onto mine. "I think I have feelings for you." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. My mind raced, my breath catching in my throat. "Ryan," I began, struggling to find the right words. "You can't mean that." But the look in his eyes told me he did. "I know it's wrong," he said, his voice cracking, "but I can't help it. Ever since you came into our lives, I felt something I can't explain. I don't expect you to feel the same way, but I had to tell you." I stared at him, my emotions a whirlwind of shock, confusion, and something else I couldn't quite identify. "Ryan, you're like family to me. This can't happen." He looked away, his shoulders slumping. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make things awkward. I couldn't keep it to myself anymore." "Ryan," I said, gently placing a hand on his arm. "You're young and emotions can be confusing, but we have to respect the boundaries of our relationships. Your father loves you and he loves me. We can't betray that trust." He nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. "I understand. I just needed you to know." The rest of the evening passed in silence, the weight of his confession hanging heavily between us. When we returned home, Ryan retreated to his room and I sat alone in the living room, replaying the events of the day in my mind. I knew I couldn't tell Danielle about what had happened. It would shatter their relationship in our family. But I also knew that things could never be the same between Ryan and me. Days turned into weeks, and while Ryan and I maintained a polite distance, the tension was palpable. I threw myself into my marriage, focusing on Daniel and the life we were building together. But every so often, I catch Ryan looking at me with that same intensity, and my heart would ache for the young man who was struggling to find his place in the world. In time, Ryan moved out to attend college in another city, and the distance helped us both heal. He'd occasionally call to check in, his voice lighter, more confident, and while our relationship would never be the same, I was grateful for the opportunity to guide him through one of the most challenging moments of his life. Looking back, that day on the beach was a turning point for all of us. It forced me to confront the complexities of love, loyalty, and family, and it reminded me of the importance of setting boundaries and protecting the people we care about. Life, like the ocean, is always moving, never stopping, and it's up to us to navigate the waves with grace and integrity. The passage of time brought new changes to our lives. Daniel and I celebrated our first anniversary with a quiet dinner at home, the intimacy of the evening underscoring the bond we had forged. He had no idea of the storm I had weathered alone, and I was determined to keep it that way. Ryan was thriving at college, sending occasional updates about his classes and newfound friends. I could feel the space and time were helping him grow into the man he was meant to be. It was a relief, though. A part of me always wondered if those feelings, he confessed, had entirely faded. I hoped they had, because he deserved a fresh start, a chance to find love and happiness with someone who could reciprocate, without complications or guilt. One afternoon, months after that beach day, Ryan's name lit up on my phone. It was a video call, something he rarely initiated. I hesitated for a moment, then swiped to answer. His face appeared on the screen, sun-kissed and smiling. "Hey, Maggie." He greeted me, his voice warm and easy. "I wanted to show you something curious." I leaned closer to the screen. "What is it?" He turned the phone to reveal a stunning sunset view, the vibrant hues of orange and pink melting into the horizon. It was reminiscent of the one we'd watched together months ago. It reminded me of that day. He said, his tone reflective. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realized something." I held my breath, waiting for him to continue. "I'm grateful for everything you've done for me," he said, "even when I was struggling. You handled it with so much grace. I've learned a lot from you, Maggie, about boundaries, about love, and about moving forward." Tears welled in my eyes as I listened to him. "Ryan, you've grown so much. I'm proud of you," he smiled, his eyes shining. "I'm proud of me too. And I wanted to thank you for being there, for listening, and for helping me see the bigger picture. I've met someone, actually. Her name's Lily. She's amazing." A wave of relief washed over me, followed by genuine happiness. "Ryan, that's wonderful. I'd love to meet her someday." "You will," he promised. "She's special, and she loves the ocean as much as I do." As we ended the call, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't realized I needed. Ryan was finding his way, and so was I. The past no longer loomed like a shadow over us. Instead, it became a chapter of growth and understanding, a reminder of the resilience of the human heart. Life continued, filled with a share of challenges and joys. Daniel and I deepened our connection, building a life together that was rooted in trust and love. Ryan visited occasionally, bringing Lily with him. She was vibrant and kind, and I could see how happy she made him. Watching them together was like witnessing a sunrise, full of promise and beauty. Years later, as I stood on that same beach, the waves lapping at my feet, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. The ocean's rhythm reminded me of life's ebb and flow, of the moments that test us and the ones that heal us. In the distance, Ryan and Lily walked hand in hand, their laughter carried by the breeze. And beside me, Daniel wrapped an arm around my shoulders, his love a steady anchor in my life. We'd navigated the waves together, each of us stronger and wiser for it. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting its golden light over the water, I felt a profound sense of peace. Life, like the ocean, is always moving, never stopping, and I was grateful for every moment of it. If you like this story or if it resonated with you in any way, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I'll be sharing more stories like this. Stories about resilience, healing, and finding hope in the darkest of times. Thank you.